And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode 23. Well, this is a strange set of coincidences. First of all, you join us here on a beautiful, rainy, drizzly morning edition of Year of the Aerostar. I have my coffee right here, and we're going to have a nice, cozy up to an Aerostar and have a nice little conversation. So, a couple of funny things happen. You'll notice I'm wearing red. And that's not a color I usually wear on Year of the Aerostar, and you can guess why, because I matched the color of my shirt to the van. Now, the other funny thing about this is this just so happens to be a shirt of Air Jordan sneakers. That is one of my painting shirts, and it's very funny, which I just put together in my mind, that it's episode 23, so Michael Jordan, obviously, and we're wearing red. So I thought that was very, very fitting, and of course, what we are featuring today is a beautiful 1990 Ford Aerostar minivan listed for $2,400 in Bluffton, Ohio. So it's too bad that it's not in Chicago, and it's too bad it's $2,400 and not $2,300, or else this would have been the perfect coincidence of things. However, nonetheless, we have a handsome, dashing, striking Ford Aerostar here. When this one popped up, I got very, very excited, because the reds that most Aerostars came in were sort of like a not a maroon, but just sort of like a darker, demure red, not like a fire engine red. And when I saw this, I said to myself, wow, that's a pretty bright red for an Aerostar. And as we'll see and go through some of the pictures, I'm not sure if it actually is that much brighter, if it's just sort of some of the clear coat fade going on, or just the way the sun is hitting it. But either way, and it's sitting under, as we see here, of course, it's sitting under a basketball hoop, another great Michael Jordan. And the other funny thing I will say about this is, tangentially, during the great... what was it called now? The documentary about Michael Jordan that aired during the pandemic, The Last Ride. Last Run. Showing my age, and it's early in the morning. A great documentary nonetheless. There is a scene where he's pulling into the practice facility, and he's driving a black C5 Corvette. One of my dream cars, I must say. It's a beautiful, beautiful Corvette. And of course, lots of people on social media and stuff, because his cars are featured quite a bit in the documentary. He has a beautiful Range Rover, and then he has a black Ferrari. I think in his early years he was driving a C4 Corvette too, and signing autographs. Obviously a Corvette fan, which is kind of cool about Michael Jordan, because I do believe he has sort of like a trashy side. And we'll get to the van, I promise. But in one of those scenes, he's pulling into his Corvette. Maybe I can find the screenshot and put it in here. And there's, I believe it is a red Aerostar that's parked in there. And everyone was saying, Michael Jordan's cars during the last dance. There we go. Third time's a charm. And I tried to, comment on some of these video social media campaigns and say, well, what about the red Aerostar he was driving to the practice facility? So this could be Michael Jordan's Ford Aerostar. And if you're out there, Mr. Jordan, for the guy who's all about flight, and an Aerostar is a spaceship, so it would seem to be a perfect vehicle for you, sir. All right, so it is standing here on a beautiful, beautiful day, sitting here under this lovely, lovely basketball hoop, very similar to the one that you've seen in the movie Space Jam. And to you kids at home, Michael Jordan was in a movie called Space Jam before LeBron James was. So, this vehicle has been driven 103 miles. It has an automatic transmission. It's only had 2 owners. Its fuel type is gasoline. So we shall get into it now. Seller's description: 1990 Aerostar, no rust, owned by a little old lady, always stored inside, has running boards, we'll see that in a second, and a trailer hitch. Only issues are power steering fluid and a tranny fluid leak. Looks like the tranny fluid leak is just from lack of driving it much over the last 3 years. Inside is in immaculate condition, as well as the paint. Zero rust. All right, so first things first. I'm not sure if this is just dust or if this is clear coat fade, but the paint does look to be in quite good condition. This might just be some dust. First thing we're going to notice is these wonderful little like sort of rally style lights that I absolutely love. I've always been trying to find rally style lights for these Aerostars. Now there's a contingent of Aerostar owners in Russia who actually, I think the guy's name is Thanky. He's like a bass player. And I've seen quite a few, you know, some of them made them over there, probably during the Cold War or something. And they have these, you know, sort of round running lights. And I just think it's a great, great look. I think they look so good on an Aerostar. And they've put aftermarket wheels on them and done some like just subtle but very tasteful modifications to them. So I'm always looking for sort of a set of rally lights. And these seem to come up through the bumper, which is very interesting. I'm not sure quite how they're mounted. And I will say too also that this Ohio style license plate looks very, very nice, especially on this red Aerostar. Very striking, very nice. So, boom, the big reveal. It does indeed have these running boards, and these are not like sort of the sport style running boards. These are a more basic steel running board. I think they were still, or maybe they're aluminum, I could be wrong about that. Maybe they're, I believe they are a factory option, but they just don't have sort of like the, maybe the finish or the sportiness of the sport ones where they're all sort of circular and windy. This is much more of a basic running board. But very nice nonetheless. I think they do look great on an Aerostar. I think it adds to the look and it makes them look a little bit lower, a little bit sleeker, and it looks a little bit more like a spaceship. Now the running board does seem to be hanging off here a little bit, but you know, that's probably easily fixable. And the fact that there's not a lot of rust, I feel like these running boards sort of collect moisture and rust develops a lot with Aerostars that have these running boards. And I feel like this is quite clean, even down to your rockers, which is very nice. A couple other impressive things as we see this beautiful basketball hoop again. Excuse me as I take a sip of my coffee. Ah, delicious. All right, is these beautiful graphics package. Now, of course, you have this pinstripe. Now, this is a very common Aerostar pinstripe location, and it just perfectly accents and accentuates this beautiful curved line that runs all the way up here, balances out, and then runs all the way down the entire length of the vehicle, and even maybe onto the back a little bit there. This is one of my favorite lines of the Aerostar. I think this line makes the Aerostar because you have all these wedges and flat lines and angles, and then you just have this beautiful, just sweeping curve that just sort of undulates its way and then eventually does turn into a more angular straight line. But I just think this curve is so beautiful. It's a beautiful body panel line, and it just perfectly gaps all this other stuff here. You know, this gap right here to the bottom of your little triangle window is approximately the same size as the gap between your top of your triangle window and your windshield. This whole area here in the Aerostar is where everything kind of comes together. It's kind of the fulcrum, and you can trace every line on the vehicle to this little triangular window, which is very, very interesting. Really cool piece too. And of course, this graphic down here, wonderful. I mean, this is a Chicago Bulls Aerostar. You have your gray and white here. And I wish the picture were a little bit higher resolution because I have a feeling it's like kind of a gradient line thing where the difference in color actually between this sort of more white color and this sort of more looks to be pink color is just that I believe the number of lines that are in here. And so it's just a tiny bunch of tiny little thin lines, and it's such a nice detail and very precise. And then from afar, obviously, it just gives the illusion of being a different color. Now, the gray could be solid, or that could be a lot of lines too. I feel like I see some red coming through. Maybe in some of the other pictures, we'll see the graphic a little bit better. The other thing I have to mention about this is I love this style hubcap. Now, this is a hubcap. It's not well, maybe this one is a steel wheel, but I believe this one is, yeah, so that's interesting. This may indeed be a steel wheel. I can't be sure about that. But is this a Buick hubcap? This might be a Buick hubcap, which would just be perfect for me. Anyways, there is a hubcap, a factory hubcap that looked very much like this. Now, 1990 is quickly becoming one of my favorite years of the Aerostar because you had this style hubcap And it's very like Crown Victoria-esque. Like I just think it looks nicer than some of the other hubcaps that were on there later that were more like had a little bit more swoopy and angular, like the ones that came on the sport versions of the Aerostar. They were the more common hubcap, but these just look like a little bit more high quality. They actually appear to be like metal. They have that shine to them, and they have the bright blue Ford logo in the middle. So for that reason, I really like this era style hubcap. So the funny thing that happened was the other day, my good buddy Evan, who also owns a 1986 Ford Aerostar that I sold to him, he posted a great thing on, and I'll try to link this. He posted a great thing online that showed him looking through his window at an Aerostar, and it said, "Reach out and touch an Aerostar." And so the reflection of his hand on the window looked like he was actually touching the Aerostar that was driving beside him. And it happened to be a red Aerostar with this style hubcaps. And I made a comment on it saying how much I love those hubcaps. And I said, "Chef's kiss." So now, all of a sudden, pops this Aerostar up on Marketplace. And so, boy, the timing of all this is just really quite fascinating. So, okay, here we go. Here's a better picture. And this is why I think these are hubcaps too, because here you have your steel wheels uncovered. Now I have to say, there's a little whoopsie here. This rear bumper panel is struggling right there, but I imagine that's not too difficult to remedy. I can't tell if that's a little dent there or not. But here we see, you can't zoom in too much, but you can see that this is obviously clearly a gradient pattern where there's these many little lines that form this illusion of a lighter color. And boy, this graphics, I mean, so 90s, just perfect. I mean, it's actually, kind of a mix of 80s and 90s. Absolutely stunning. And we're getting a little sneak preview here. That's kind of funny, the mirror is bent backwards there. Getting a sneak preview here of the interior, and you probably know what I'm going to talk about if you've ever watched this series before. So the back, we have a beautiful trailer hitch here. Looks to be in very, very nice condition, not all rusted out. Of course, that beautiful license plate. You have the original dealership icon here. And now I like this. Nowadays, I don't really like when the dealership blasts their logo all over the vehicle. But back in the day, they actually had like, solid three-dimensional metal things that they would put on there. And now I feel like they're almost becoming a bit of a collector item. A lot of the dealerships aren't in business anymore. So that's actually kind of cool. And it is the XLT version, as we see here. Another great rear 3/4, and the paint really does look like to be in immaculate condition. Like you can see the sunlight beaming off it. Now, a couple episodes ago, we did this green Aerostar that was not listed for $9,000, and that was in really, really good condition with pretty low miles, 80,000 or something like that. Or maybe it was even lower than that. And they were asking $9,000 for it. This, I would argue, for $2,400 is a lot more than a third of that car. I think there are still deals to be had out there on Aerostars, and while I appreciate that the collector market is starting to value them kind of higher, and it's sort of almost close to $10,000 in some cases, I think that there's enough of them out there that you can still find these gems. So that's sort of a side on the market of the Aerostar, and I don't know if I think it's fair to pay $9,000 for that car. I think it's totally worth it. But by the same token, I think if you're not ready to sort of pay sort of collector market prices and you want to do a little bit of research and maybe watch this program, you'll see that there's still quite a few deals to be had on Aerostars, although they are getting harder and harder to find every day. Obviously, we can see again this bumper, and this is your older style bumper with your chrome inserts here, which I really like. Just kind of, this almost looks unpainted, but it's probably your standard gray. A little cracking in the back. Now this can be fixed, if nothing else, just with body filler, just with Bondo, and then it'd have to probably be painted in that case. But there are ways to fix these things, although they are quite fragile. And you have a factory roof rack here, obviously. So now let's get into the inside, and boy, I love the two-tone seats on the Aerostar, and this is maybe the best combination. Now I will say the tan two-tone seats with the red piping is maybe like my favorite, but I think on this particular Aerostar with this color motif that we have going on here, this grayish blue with the red is just absolutely perfect. The high contrast suits the van very well, and the red piping to match the exterior of the van, excuse me. So many of these Aerostar seats have the red piping, but the car isn't red itself, which is fine. I mean, it looks good with green, it looks good with gray, it looks good with brown, like it all works. But to actually have one on a red Aerostar is very, very cool. You have some power windows here, and of course the great two-tone buttons. Some Ford, I don't know even if other Ford vehicles did this. It seemed to be almost an Aerostar only thing, but a lovely, lovely thing. So power windows, I mean, it was the XLT version, and of course this is the 1990, so it's pre-facelift interior-wise. So it's a very interesting combination of things. 1990 was a very, very interesting period. Here you can see you have your lumbar support, and of course my 86 Aerostar has this, and you can increase pressure to your lumbar area of your seat, which is very, very ahead of its time, I think, especially in sort of like a, what was ultimately like a passenger or commercial vehicle. It's a very interesting feature. So again, the two-tone seats, this color scheme really brings it out. You notice that it's not just the color that's different, but the texture itself is also different. And these seats look to be in very, very good condition. A little tiny bit of staining here, or maybe some sunwear even, and just, getting in and out of the car. But geez Louise, I mean, this car is 1990, 32 years old now. So that's pretty incredible. Oh, here's another great shot, and the sun is just sitting very nicely in this picture. You can tell how clean everything is. So, cassette player, obviously. So this is the pre-facelift. So 86, 87, 88 were the original grille, and then 88, 89, 90 were the secondary grille. And actually, I should go around front. I'm sorry, I have to skip around here. Indeed. So we have the newer style grille, but with the Ford logo located in the center. So these 3 years, 88, 89, and 90, are very interesting years for the Aerostar. So I have a feeling it would make sense if they were changing the grille, they would do this little feature on the interior too, which was, as we see, a beautiful, beautiful bench seat there. Again, I love how they continued the piping and the theme all the way to the back. Now this is a little bit of dirtier. You have some, there were some probably kids in here at some point, or just messy adults. Again, beautiful metal steer, and these almost look like they're brown seatbelts, which is very interesting. Maybe they're gray, but in the light they almost look like brown seatbelts, which would be funny in otherwise, very gray and red theme. So this is what I really wanted to get to. So the digital dashboard was such a cool thing in the Aerostar, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like, I wish this was zoomed out a little bit more, because you actually have right over on the right side here a three-dimensional like hologram picture of an Aerostar, like it actually is the exact car, and cars do that now. And Doug DeMuro always talks about how cool it is when a Jaguar or something like that, or a Tesla, has a picture of an actual Tesla in your display screen, and it's like not just a generic car, it's the actual one. Well, Ford baby was doing that with the Aerostar back in 1990. And I thought it was such a cool thing. And then, of course, your digital speedometer with your odometer. And, of course, this would be the obligatory odometer shot to show you that the mileage is actually correct. And over here, and it's really too bad, this is, I wish this was zoomed out a little bit, but you have your beautiful, oh no, technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Apologize for that. So you have your, and this is interesting too, because the Aerostars usually did not have a tachometer on, at least the early Aerostars. Like my 1986 Aerostar, and I always talk about this with Evan, does not have a tachometer on it. It simply has different color codes on your speedometer. So when you get up to 55 miles an hour, it turns yellow, and it's like, hey buddy, watch it. And then if you get to like 65 miles an hour, it turns red. It's like, you shouldn't be going this fast, danger. But it's not associated with revs, it's just on the speedometer. So I wonder if this was, now I have to think about if the second generation interior, or the post-facelift interior, has a tachometer on it. It may or may not. I can't even remember, you know. I've forgotten more about Aerostars than, as the saying goes. But that's beautiful that it has a tachometer, and it has your little yellow light, little red light. It has your fuel here, which is wonderful, and it's in bars, just like a Toyota Prius of modern time. But it's very, very similar to the Corvette C4 digital display. Very similar. I mean, even the layout with the tachometer sweeping over and then your other information here is very similar. And the illuminated numbers for your revs. Just beautiful. I wish there was a zoomed out picture, as I said. But that's okay. So we have a beautiful cassette deck here. And you have your big floor-mounted shifters we saw in another picture, which is just hilarious. Like the fact that this is an automatic transmission. Now, with a long manual transmission, it kind of is like, okay, it's like a school bus. It kind of like makes sense a little bit. But this giant floor-mounted shifter, there's also, what you can't see, is a floor-mounted handbrake. So this, you know, it really was a true combination of a car, a truck, and a van, all wrapped into one. A lot of car-like features here. And just an impeccable vehicle. Just, you know, the most versatile vehicle of all time, still to this day. I just had a comment on one of my videos that was when I was talking about deciding between a Ford Excursion and a Toyota Prius, and you're welcome to go watch that video. And the comment was really poignant, I thought, and it said, you know, this points out the lack of, the fact that you're deciding between these two vehicles points out the lack of sort of customer support, or the lack of awareness on the automakers' part to not provide vehicles for, you know, working people that fit their needs. And I thought that was a really good comment. And I said, yeah, like, you know, 20 some odd 30 years ago, you could get a small garageable van that could fit a ton of stuff in it, in the extended model, 4x8 foot sheet of plywood. You could get it with all-wheel drive. You could get it with a manual transmission, and that's basically still a sort of a elusive or you know, unicorn-like vehicle on the carscape today. And it's very, very funny that all this time ago the Aerostar was doing that. So I do encourage Ford to come out with the EV Aerostar, the electric Aerostar. There will be a video on this, just this subject, but I think if you come out with something now, I mean, they have the Transit electric now, but it has, 130 miles of range, and it's this gargantuan thing. If you made a smaller garageable EV van that could get, you know, say 300 miles of range, and then you could use the retro futuristic styling. You could do a display just like this on your LED screen, you know, but make it like very super retro-y. That's all the rage right now. It's like everyone's got nostalgia for everything. So the Aerostar styling, obviously timeless, never gets old. So there you go. I think it'd be a smash hit, and I think just like the original van, because that's the other thing, like the Toyota or the Mercedes Metris, you know, obviously pretty good cargo van, but obviously, again, Doug DeMuro said as a minivan, it's just like absolute garbage. Again, with the Ford Transit Connect now, pretty good cargo van, but not that many families are using it as like a minivan, as like a passenger van. And I actually think with the Transit, more people should, because I think it's like an underrated as a passenger vehicle. But the Aerostar, again, what other vehicle could be such a capable passenger van or cargo van all in one? So I digress, and this has been a long one here, but just so much to talk about, and getting my coffee going now, getting excited about this Aerostar. So just a beautiful Michael Jordan edition, we'll call it, for episode 23, 1990 Ford Aerostar minivan. $2,400, 103,000 miles in Bluffton, Ohio. And baby, we ain't bluffing. So you could shoot some hoops and hang out with your Aerostar. Just gorgeous. Okay, so this has been Year of the Aerostar on Janky AF. Thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, Janky do Thanky.